I think it's really a magnificent time to be alive in that we not only have business systems that are incredibly good at getting things done and getting them done fast, but we also have the spilling of all this once occult information from all ages through the internet. And no matter what happens with net neutrality, and if they manage to put the toothpaste back in the tube where we're sitting right now, we still have the toothpaste out of the tube in a way that it's never spilled out like that in a long time, at least. So when I look at a lot of these business systems and organizational systems and methods for bringing about the creation of things, in mostly, I don't want to say corporate settings, but business settings, the people getting the most attention right now are those who can synthesize isomorphic models into the same working model. And this really excites me because this is exactly what I've been working on for the past few years, even to the point of going literally insane because of the thinking is so much different from, I guess, so much different from where I started, so much different from the way that most people think, or it's like the way that most people think until you start talking like that, and it becomes communicable after a while once you get more skill, because you can learn a truth or you can learn a fact and you don't necessarily know how to communicate it. It's like Moses up on the mountain receiving the 10 Commandments. He had to come down from the mountain, and it's this coming down from the mountain when you get this new information, either from an incredibly intuitive business structure or business system of principles that is meant to magically, in a certain sense, unlock tons of behaviors that you're doing and people in your atmosphere are doing. You know, there's that kind of, I mean, the amount of epiphanies that can come from that on one hand, and it's the same kind of thing if you're researching esoteric religious stuff, esoteric occult stuff, anything that's complex and esoteric, and some of these things you could sit and study them for years, and it's like, you know, there's something there, but you gotta walk past the scarecrows of the people telling you don't ever look into that, you shouldn't, it's dangerous, because I mean, a lot of this stuff is, and one thing that's exciting and terrifying is the similar territory or the identical territory that some of these maps are covering, both in esoteric stuff and business models. It's getting close. It's not even getting close. They're already overlapping. The maps are overlapping. So, I mean, everything just speeds up so fast. And I think the only way that you can possibly navigate today's world and the future is, I mean, for one, you have to have good maps, but not just good pragmatic maps that tell you about how things have been or how things have been in the past 50 years or something like that. It's not good enough. It's not, I mean, it's just like, if you have record of how a good business ran in the past 50 years, even 100 years, something over that time, in the long term, in the big picture, that's just pop culture. That's just a meme that flashes one day and it's irrelevant the next. We need something or some things that are way more connected to what is ultimately the order of the universe. Because now, if you spend enough time around smart people, you find out that, you hear people talking about we have to be thinking in fourth dimension, fifth dimension, sixth dimension. We have to be able to understand dimensions up to, I mean, to the point where there's so high of dimensions. If you look at everyone's different map of what the dimensions are, they start to disagree because it's actually unmapped territory, and if it's mapped, it's not really understood by anyone at all. Anyone around, or anyone that's not ascended beyond us. So I think I'm circumlocuting here, but I don't even know how to do my homework sometimes, because I'll pay attention to something and pay attention to this complexity thinking with Snowden, and I've watched like 5 or 10 minutes of the video, and all of a sudden I'm blowing up. And it was like talking to Steve Shep the other day, and there were things blowing up in my head, and it wasn't just what he was telling me, but it was also isomorphism of certain understandings of things. And he was talking about computers on the internet being open ports, and anyone can get into your computer if they have your IP address, and you can't kick them out. The best thing you can do is just know that they're in there, and then go from there. And it just like an epiphany happened in my head that it's the exact same way that minds work. And if you get into occult topics enough, you know that there is such thing as accessing other people's minds. As weird as that is, we understand that there's mind control, and we understand that the government has a lot of these technologies at work, and they spend money on researching astral projection. And it's the information on that comes out slowly, but it's just odd. Like looking into the New Age, and like going to Sedona. I went to Sedona to research some of these things, and then you get to a certain point, and you'll get about 90% of that New Age stuff where it's just like woo-woo enough to give certain gullible people some kind of worldview. But then there's like this 10% that's actually psychic research that's on the absolute fringe, and it's on the absolute forefront, and the government's involved. You get to a certain point, and their research, which starts out in this sort of woo-woo culture, they get scientific with it, they get results, and then you don't hear about it anymore. It was like I remember a newspaper article or something on the news like 10 years ago, and somebody created, it was like a civilian or a low-level researcher or something, developed a way to shoot a sound wave like a laser beam, and you could just shoot sound straight into somebody's ear, so they would hear it in their ear and nobody else would hear it. And then you never heard about that again, because it's too applicable to defense. It's too applicable. It's too expensive, and it's too risky to just to be used in consumer electronics or something like that yet. But yeah, what I was saying about we need good maps. We need maps that not just ancient maps, but this connection of maps that work on principles rather than facts. And principles is like internal logic, and it's something that is going to be applicable in many situations. We need that, and mixed with these things that are just like universally true and have been universally true. So I use the example of Kabbalah because I sort of understand, sort of almost maybe a little bit of it. It's huge, to claim that you're a master at that. It's just, if you were really master of something like Kabbalah, you could create anything at will, anytime, with no limitations at all, because it's how things are created. Anything is created. So having some kind of principles like that, some sort of structure of the universe like that, that's simple enough to talk about. So it's not only the map, but the ability to communicate the map in simple ways. I think really when it comes to the larger ceremony of an environment, like, there's a day-to-day ceremony, like daily rituals that are important and can be done by certain individuals very well. But there's also this outer ring that I visualize of ceremony, which is really the thing that encapsulates the entire culture of an environment, and it tells everyone exactly who they are, and it can't just be simply a position title, like a corporate position title. It's too old, doesn't work. It's not tied enough to universal position, which is ultimately what spirituality is like finding your soul in finding out exactly who you are in the larger scheme, in the larger, cosmologically, who are you, and knowing that. If you can find that out about yourself and people in your environment and then communicate that, that's ultimately what drives this larger ceremony of the entire environment. So the ability to integrate maps, not only use these maps that are they're modern, but they're universal enough to work through anything. Having the ability to find isomorphisms in these maps and combine them is an intuitive skill. So the map is important, but so is the compass in a Zelda sense. And I've thought about this metaphor a lot, is you need the map and you need the compass in order to make your way through each dungeon. And the map will show you where the boss room is, likely. And the map will show you where the main weapon is, likely, to defeat that beast. But the only way to know where you are really on the map is that intuition and being able to tune into that intuition. And for some people, intuition is something that it's really upfront and you're in it all the time. And for other people, if they're experiencing intuition and getting in touch with their intuition, it's really a transcendent skill. It's a big indicator of growth and maturity. So I've heard this from salesmen who get good at what they do when they tap into their intuition, when they know when somebody's going to say yes, and they get it like a split second before or a few seconds before. They know that they're going to close. They know that the shut up and take my money moment is coming, and that's really, when I hear that from people who, it's not always nominally salesmen, it's entrepreneurs in general. When you get to that point, that really says something. And if I knew that sort of personality that didn't develop that ability, that's where I would lead them to, if it were possible to develop somebody like that. But it would also mean that they were a lot less mature. Yeah. So the future is near totally uncertain, but at least we have the maps, and at least we have the compass to get through these dungeons. And the more that we have well-built teams, the better the maps will be, the more people we have with us on our quest, and the greater demons we can slay wherever the hell we go.